The hum of party laughter echoed from my kitchen where my daughter-in-law hosted 25 guests without telling me. Still, I folded the beach towel in my lap, one slow edge at a time, as if packing silence. As the sound of clinking glasses grew louder, it pressed against my temples like a warning. While she toasted in my dining room, I remembered how she'd once called this house temporary, like I didn't belong in it. The same towel I used to rock her baby with now covered my suitcase. That's when I booked a beachfront villa and left her to explain the mess she made without me. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The call came in while I was adjusting a crooked ornament on the tree. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums. Furnace running, fridge kicking on and off, the faint whoosh of cars outside on our little New Jersey street. I glanced at my phone on the coffee table, saw Jessica lighting up the screen, and felt my shoulders tense. I thought about letting it ring out. Instead, I picked up old habits. "Hi, Jessica," I said, putting on the warm, polite voice I always used with her. "Mom, great you picked up," she chirped, breathless like she'd already had 3 cups of coffee. "Okay, so we have amazing news." My fingers curled around the edge of the couch. "Oh. So," she rushed on, "we've all decided we're doing Christmas at your house this year." For a second I thought I'd misheard. "Your what?" "Christmas at your place," she repeated, slower this time, like I was dense. "My parents, my aunts and uncles, the cousins, the kids, everyone's in. It's going to be huge." I blinked at the tree, the lights blurring. "Who exactly is everyone?" She laughed. "Oh, you know my side. It's about 25 people, give or take. Depends if Kyle's girlfriend comes, but don't stress, we'll make it work. Tom said you'd be totally fine with it." Tom said. My son, handing out my house like a party venue. "Jessica, 25 people is." "So beds," she cut in, already assigning my life. "Your room is yours, obviously, guest room for my parents. Tom and I can take the office with the pullout. Kids in sleeping bags in the living room, fun, right? Sam and Olivia in the den, everyone else on air mattresses. You still have those extra blankets." I stared at the framed family photo over the mantel, me, Tom, and my late husband George, taken years ago. Before holiday dinners turned into military operations I ran single-handedly. "I have blankets," I said slowly. "Perfect. And food." She sounded delighted, like she was planning a catered event. "You'll do your sweet potato casserole, the ham, and maybe a turkey? Dad's doing that high-protein thing again. We'll pitch in too, obviously. I'll bring green bean casserole. Sam's on charcuterie now, so that'll be cute." A flash of memory hit so hard I could almost smell it. Last Christmas, up at 5 a.m., basting a turkey while the ham cooled, rolls rising on the counter. George had leaned in the doorway and joked, "One of these years, Helen, we're just going to disappear to a beach and let them fend for themselves." I'd laughed, then gone back to refilling coffee for Jessica's parents, who never once offered to help with dishes. "Mom, you there?" Jessica's voice snapped me back. "I'm here," I murmured. "Great. Oh, and last year the rolls ran out, remember? Let's not do that again," she said lightly. People were starving. Starving in a house where I'd cooked enough food for an army. "Jessica," I tried again, "this is a lot to spring on me. It would have been nice to be asked." There was a tiny pause. "We always do Christmas with you," she said, like that settled it. "It's tradition and you're just so good at it. Honestly, I don't know how you pull it off every year. You'll figure things out, you always do." There it was, the compliment that was really a sentence. I looked around my living room. My nice, neat, quiet space suddenly morphed in my mind. Suitcases in the hallway, shoes piled by the door, someone complaining that the guest room mattress was too firm, someone else asking if I had anything gluten-free but not weird. For years, I'd told myself this was love, that this was what good mothers and good hostesses did, made it all work, swallowed their hurt, smiled through the exhaustion. "Sure," I heard myself say, my voice strangely calm. "I'll figure things out." "Awesome," she said, already moving on. "I'll text you everyone's dietary stuff and arrival times. Oh, and can you make sure the Wi-Fi password is easy this year? My dad couldn't get on last time and it was drama. Love you, this is going to be epic." Before I could answer, the line went dead. I lowered the phone and stared at the dark screen. My heart wasn't racing. It was heavy, tired, like it had been carrying the same weight for S. Oh, long it had forgotten how to feel anything else. Outside, the sky was a flat winter gray. Across the street, our neighbor's Christmas lights flickered on early, big colored bulbs blinking cheerfully in the gloom. George's voice echoed in my mind again. One of these years, we're just going to disappear to a beach and let them fend for themselves. I set the phone down and looked back at the tree, the half-finished line of ornaments, the little life I'd carved out for myself in the months since he died. For the first time, the thought didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like a possibility. And standing there in my quiet living room with 25 uninvited guests already marching through my future in Jessica's plans, one quiet, dangerous question rose up in me. What if this was the year I finally said no? I stood in the living room, that question echoing in my head. What if this was the year I finally said no? I picked up my cell again before I could talk myself out of it and scrolled to the one person who would actually say what she thought. Janet. She answered on the second ring. If this is about a dead body, I need coffee first. A laugh slipped out of me, thin but real. No dead body, just my sanity. That bad? She asked, her voice softening. What happened? Jessica, I said, and that was almost enough explanation by itself. She just informed me that Christmas is at my house, 25 people, her whole army. Tom apparently volunteered me. Janet let out a sharp whistle. 25, does she think you're running a hotel now? I sank into a chair at the kitchen table. She listed where everyone would sleep, what I'm cooking, what I always cook. I said I'd figure it out. You didn't, Janet said flatly. I did, I admitted, but then I hung up and thought, what if I just do? There was a short, charged silence. I could almost hear the grin forming on her face. Helen Stewart, are you finally considering a Christmas where you're not chained to a stove? I'm considering a Christmas where I'm not even in this state, I said. The words came out shaky, but they came. Somewhere warm, somewhere without Jessica's mother asking why the napkins don't match the runner. Janet actually clapped. I heard it. Yes, this is the version of you I've been praying for. Where are we sending you? Beach, island? I vote any place you can't see your driveway. I pulled my laptop toward me and opened it. The glow of the screen felt like a spotlight on my intentions. I don't even know where to start. Type warm beach Christmas vacation and work your way down the list, she said. And remember, you're not picking a hotel, you're picking your freedom. I typed, hit enter, and the screen flooded with blues and golds, ocean, palm trees, people in linen and sunglasses holding drinks glittering in the sun. It felt like looking into another universe. My heart picked up. You still there? She asked. I'm here, I said. I'm just looking at a pool surrounded by palm trees and wondering why I've spent the last 10 years making 6 different pies for people who complain about the crust. Because you're kind, she said, not because they deserve it. Big difference. Images blurred as memories crowded in. The Christmas George's sister stayed 3 extra days because flights were expensive, and I did her laundry while she gave me advice on how to be more firm with my own son. The year Jessica's dad announced at the table that the turkey was a little dry and everyone laughed, and I smiled like it didn't land like a punch. The first Christmas after George died, when I cooked everything anyway so no one would feel weird, and I cried folding napkins, no one noticed. My chest hurt just thinking about it. What are you seeing? Janet asked. A place with a balcony over the ocean, I said. Christmas lights on palm trees, a holiday buffet so I don't cook one single thing, people who have no idea who Jessica is. Janet made an approving noise. That's the one, can you swing it? The price made my eyebrows jump, but I didn't close the tab. I probably can if I decide I'm worth it. Helen, she said quietly, you've given them your time, your house, your energy, your health. The very least you're worth is 5 days of room service. I laughed again, but this time my eyes stung. I clicked book now and filled in my information, hands trembling like I was doing something illegal. Departure December 23, return December 29. Adults 1. That one stared back at me. For a second, panic fluttered me alone on a beach at Christmas. No family, no tree, no chaos to hide inside. And beneath that panic, something else, relief, clean and sharp. Tell me what you're doing, Janet said. I'm putting in my card number, I whispered. I'm actually doing it. Good, she said. Hit confirm before you chicken out. I mean it, Helen, you deserve this. My cursor hovered over the button, confirm booking. I thought of Sika handing me 25 people like a grocery list. Of Tom assuming I'd just absorb the impact like I always did. Of George leaning in that long-ago doorway saying we should disappear to a beach someday. Okay, I breathed, okay. I clicked. The screen spun for a second, then popped up with a cheery message, reservation confirmed. For a moment, I just stared at it, my pulse loud in my ears, something unknotted between my shoulder blades like I'd been holding my breath for years without noticing. Janet exhaled on the other end. How do you feel? I looked at the words on the screen, at my name, at the dates. Terrified, I said honestly, and lighter. Hold on to the second part when the first part starts yelling, she replied, because they will yell. I opened the confirmation email, the resort photo stretching across the top, sun, sand, bright blue water. For the first time in my life, Christmas looked like an escape instead of a sentence. I guess, I said slowly, now I have to tell them I won't be here. And as that reality settled over me, my phone buzzed again on the table, Tom calling this time. Tom's name was still on my screen when I picked up. I just closed the email from the resort, the ocean blue banner still burned into my eyes. For the first time in years, my future didn't look like a kitchen. Hey honey, I answered. Mom, he sounded tight, no small talk. Jessica says you told me you're going away for Christmas. I did, I said. I've booked a trip. I won't be here to host this year. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. What do you mean, won't be here? Everyone's coming to your place. We already told them. I know what you told them, I replied calmly, but no one asked me before they did. He went quiet. In the background, I heard a cartoon blaring, one of the kids calling for him. So that's it, you're just not doing Christmas. I'm not hosting Christmas, I corrected. You're welcome to have one, just not in my house, not run by me. He exhaled sharply. Jess is freaking out. Can I put you on speaker? She wants to talk. I'd rather talk to you first. Mom, she's the one planning everything, he insisted. Hang on. The line clicked. He'd already pulled the phone away. A few minutes later, my cell lit up again. Jessica. I answered, hello. What is this? She demanded, skipping any greeting. Tom says you're taking a trip and not doing Christmas. Please tell me he misunderstood. He didn't, I said. I'm going away for the holiday, so I won't be here to host. There was a beat of stunned silence. You can't just disappear, Helen. My family has already arranged time off. The kids are excited. This is our Christmas. I glanced at the confirmation email on my laptop and let it steady me. You're all free to have Christmas, I said. You'll just have to do it without me running it. So you're abandoning the family, she snapped, at Christmas. I'm not abandoning anyone, I replied. I'm simply not hosting this year. She scoffed. This isn't like you. Is this about George? Because I get that grief is weird, but. This isn't about grief, I cut in more firmly than I meant to. It's about boundaries. I've been hosting for years. I'm tired. I'm doing something different. I could practically hear her rearranging her argument. Her voice shifted to something almost sweet. Okay, look, you love doing this. You're so good at it. The house, the food, it's kind of your thing. It's your role in the family. No, I said, it's a role I've played. That's not the same as it being my purpose. Her patience cracked. Do you have any idea how disappointed Tom is? He said Christmas won't feel like Christmas without your house. There it was, the old hook. My guilt flared on reflex, then fizzled. Tom's a grown man, I said quietly. If he wants a certain kind of Christmas for his kids, he can create it. Maybe this is the year he does. So you're fine hurting him, hurting the kids, she pressed. I'm supposed to tell them Grandma decided a beach was more important than them. If you tell it that way, I said, that's your choice. I'm choosing myself for once. That doesn't mean I don't love them, it means I'm not willing to be used. You're being selfish, she said flatly. After everything we've done to include you, this is how you repay us. I almost laughed at include. Instead, I kept my tone even. What you've done is expect me to host your entire family every year without being asked. I'm allowed to stop. She went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice had gone cold. Fine, go sit on a beach while we figure out the mess you're leaving, but don't be surprised if things are different after this. I know they will be, I said. That's part of why I'm doing it. There was a sharp exhale. Tom will remember this, Helen. Maybe he should, I replied. I hung up before she could answer, my hand shaking, and a second later, another message slid across my screen. From Tom. If you're really doing this, we need to talk, in person. I stared at Tom's text until the words blurred. We need to talk in person. Maybe once that would have sent me straight into fixing mode, baking something, rehearsing apologies. Instead, I set the phone face down on the table and turned back to the open email from the resort. Departure time, terminal baggage allowance, check-in link, airport shuttle option. My life for once boiled down to logistics that were only about me. I clicked through it all carefully, filling out my passport details, choosing a window seat, adding the airport transfer. With every box I checked, something heavy loosened inside my chest. By the time I closed the laptop, my trip wasn't a wish anymore, it was real. 2 days before my flight, I pulled my suitcase out of the hall closet. The same navy roller I'd used for George's work conferences, for funerals, for practical trips, never for something this selfish. The word floated up, carrying Jessica's voice. I unzipped it anyway. The bedroom was quiet except for the faint rattle of the heat through the vents. Outside, bare branches scratched against the window. I laid the suitcase open on the bed and went to my dresser. Swimsuits shoved to the back from some long-ago summer, linen pants, light dresses that hadn't seen daylight in years. As I folded them, the house around me felt almost like a stranger's, too calm, too mine. My phone buzzed on the nightstand 3 times in 10 minutes. I didn't check it. I knew it was either Tom or Jessica, each with their own version of how I was ruining Christmas. Instead, I focused on small, deliberate choices: sandals instead of snow boots, a wide-brimmed hat instead of a knit beanie, a dog-eared paperback I'd never finished because someone always needed more gravy, more napkins, more of me. As I tucked the book into the front pocket, a picture flashed in my mind uninvited. Christmas morning, 5 years ago. I'd been on my feet since before dawn, eggs and bacon going, coffee percolating, cinnamon rolls frosting on the counter. The living room shook with laughter and wrapping paper. I came in carrying a tray, arms aching, and no one looked up. What took so long? Jessica's cousin had joked through a mouthful of pastry. We were gonna starve. The room had laughed. I'd smiled along because that's what you do when your contribution is expected, not appreciated. Now I zipped the pocket and let that version of me stay in the past. Janet showed up that afternoon without asking, as usual, letting herself in with the key I'd given her after George died. Okay, she said, clapping her hands as she stepped into my bedroom. Show me the escape kit. I gestured to the suitcase. I'm sure I'm forgetting 12 important things. We'll start with sunscreen so you don't come back looking like cooked lobster, she said, moving past me and peering in. And a real book, not something about finding your second act. You're not a Hallmark movie. I snorted, tell that to my life. Between the two of us, the suitcase started to look like possibility. Sunscreen, a light sweater for evenings, extra reading glasses, the nice sandals I always saved for somewhere special and then never wore. Janet held up a sundress I hesitated over. This one, you take this. It might be too. It isn't, she cut in. You've spent 10 years dressing for Jessica's mother's approval. Dress for the son this time. I took the dress from her and folded it gently, my throat tight. You sure you're okay here by yourself? I asked. I feel like I'm abandoning you too. She rolled her eyes. Please, I have Netflix, a heating pad, and no screaming children. I'll be fine. You just promise me you'll actually relax, not sit on the beach worrying about whether they found the roasting pan. I swallowed. I don't know what relaxing like that feels like. You're about to find out, she said, and when the guilt starts whispering, you picture me smacking it with this. She picked up my hairbrush and swung it like a bat. I laughed so hard it surprised me. The night before my flight, I stood in the hallway and looked at my house the way I always saw it on December 23rd. Usually cluttered with luggage, extra coats draped over chairs, coolers by the door, lists taped to the fridge. Now it was just clean, quiet. My suitcase stood by the door, my passport and boarding pass tucked into my purse on the hall table. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number, then another. Jessica's relatives, probably already creating a group thread asking about parking and air mattresses and who was bringing what. For once, it wasn't my problem. I walked over, picked up the phone, and stared at the notifications stacking up. Then slowly, I slid my thumb down and turned on Do Not Disturb. In the morning, as the taxi pulled away from my curb and the house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, my phone lit up one more time, Jessica's name Fla. Jean call after call. At the airport security line with my shoes off and my boarding pass in hand, I watched the screen buzz, then go still. I took a breath, switched the phone to airplane mode and stepped forward just as another message preview flickered and vanished. Mom, the house isn't ready. I didn't open Jessica's messages until I was in my hotel room, barefoot on cool tile, the balcony door cracked so I could hear the ocean. The flight had been smooth, the landing soft. At baggage claim, I'd turned my phone off airplane mode, watched it explode with notifications, and slipped it back into my purse. One thing at a time, I'd told myself. First, get to the resort, then decide how much chaos I was willing to let in. Now, with my suitcase against the wall and a strip of blue water visible from my bed, I finally picked up the phone. Her first text sat at the top, sent hours earlier. Mom, the house isn't ready. The words used to be my cue to jump into motion. I could almost feel the ghost of that old impulse mentally running through closets, towels, freezer inventory. This time I just read it. Beneath it were more. Where do you keep the extra towels? There are no pillowcases for the air mattresses. Your neighbor is saying people can't park in front of her driveway. Did you tell her we were coming? A missed call, 2 more texts. The oven just shut off and I can't get it to restart. Also, where's the big roasting pan? It's not under the stove. I walked out onto the balcony before I answered. The air was warm and soft, the sky streaked pink. Someone down below laughed, the sound easy, unbothered. My whole life had been built around preventing exactly this kind of mess. Planning so hard there was no room for mistakes, making sure no one ever felt discomfort if I could absorb it first. I looked at the screen again and for a second waited for guilt to crash over me. It didn't. Instead, something quieter rose up, the realization that every one of those questions had nothing to do with me anymore. I typed slowly. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I hit send before I could soften it, then set the phone face down on the little balcony table. Down by the pool, a kid squealed as he hit the water. An older couple strolled along the edge of the beach, hands linked. A waiter carried a tray of drinks with tiny umbrellas. My shoulders unclenched an inch. For a few minutes, I did nothing but watch the water. A memory tried to push in, Jessica handing me a printed holiday schedule, telling me how we'd time my meals in my house so her family was bored. Me nodding, making her feel accommodated in the home I paid for. I let the memory come and go, like a wave that never reached the shore. The phone buzzed again. This is ridiculous, Helen. We don't have enough blankets, people are using their coats. Sam says the stuffing is ruined, Tom is snapping at everyone, the kids are crying. This is a disaster. I could almost see it, my calm little house crammed with bodies and noise and no one there to quietly smooth the edges. Another message arrived, sharper. Is this what you wanted, for everything to fall apart without you? That one should have landed like a knife. Instead, it did something I didn't expect. It made something click. I realized, standing there with ocean air on my skin, that it wasn't falling apart without me. It was just showing its natural state without me holding it together. The twist wasn't that they were struggling. The twist was that I finally didn't feel responsible. I picked up the phone, considered replying, then locked it instead and slid it into my bag. Behind me, the room was cool and quiet, my bed turned down, a little card on the pillow wishing me happy holidays. In my bag, the phone buzzed once more, harder this time, Jessica again, and then Tom, their names flashing in quick succession. And for the first time in my life, I walked away from the sound and headed down to the beach. The sun was slipping down when my bag started buzzing like a trapped bee. I was sitting on a lounge chair, feet buried in warm sand, listening to the waves. For a blissful hour, I'd pretended my phone didn't exist. But this vibration didn't stop, it rattled against my sunscreen bottle. I sighed, dug it out, and saw his name. Tom. For a second, I considered letting it go. Then I thought of him stuck in that house with 25 people and no idea where I kept the extra trash bags. I answered, "Hi, honey." "Mom," he sounded exhausted, tight, frayed around the edges. Behind him, I heard voices, a TV, a door slamming. "Do you have a minute?" "I do," I said. "You okay?" He huffed out a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. "Not really, this is a lot. Jess's family is everywhere, the kitchen's a disaster, people keep asking me where stuff is. They're all like, 'Your mom always has this,' and I have no idea what they're talking about." I stared out at the water, the sky streaked orange and pink. "Sounds stressful." "It is," he paused. "It'd be less stressful if you were here." There it was, the old hook. "I know you think that," I said calmly, "but that's exactly why I had to leave." He went quiet a moment. "Jess says you're punishing us." "I'm not," I said. "I'm taking care of myself. That's new for me. It probably looks like punishment to people who are used to me having no limits." "That's not fair," he muttered. "No," I agreed, "it is, and it hasn't been for years." I heard a door click on his end, the background noise fading. "So you're really just done?" "I'm done being everyone's solution," I said. "Done cleaning up messes no one admits they're making. Done being volunteered without being asked. I love you, Tom, but I am not the family maid or the hotel or the cruise director." "That's not how I see you," he said quickly. "Maybe not on purpose," I replied. "But you didn't stop Jessica from treating me that way. You let her decide my house, my schedule, my work. And when I joked about running a hotel, you laughed and said, 'You're amazing, Mom,' and let it keep happening." He was quiet for a long beat. I could hear his breathing. "I didn't realize," he said finally. "I know," I said, and my voice softened. "Pa. RT of that is on me. I made it look easy. I kept saying yes. I taught everyone to expect it, but I can't do it anymore. I won't." "So what do you want from me?" he asked, and he sounded younger than his 36 years. "I want you to stand up," I said simply. "For me and for yourself. If Jessica's family wants a big Christmas, you and she can host it, or tell them no, or get a rental, but stop using me as the default answer. This is your family now. It's your job to handle the tension, not mine." "They're not going to like that," he said. "They don't have to," I replied. "You're the one who has to live with the consequences, not them, and frankly, I've already lived them." Another silence, heavier this time. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said quietly, "for not seeing it, for letting you carry all of it. I just assumed you wanted to. Wanting you around and wanting to kill myself pulling it off are not the same thing," I said gently. "You get that now?" "I think I'm starting to," he said. The admission hit me harder than any apology. My eyes stung. "I'll talk to Jess," he added. "Not to drag you back, to tell her it can't be like this anymore, that if we want her whole clan here, we have to actually do the work, not dump it on you." "That's all I'm asking," I said. "You stepping up instead of hiding behind 'Mom will handle it.'" A sharp knock sounded through the phone, followed by Jessica's voice, sharp and impatient. "Tom, are you still on with her? We need you out here." "I have to go," he murmured. "Enjoy the beach, okay? Try not to worry about us." "I'm working on that part," I said. We hung up. For a moment I just stood there, phone in my hand, waves shushing at my feet. Something in me felt steadier, like saying it out loud had nailed a boundary into place. Then the screen lit again, this time with a text. From Jessica. What did you say to him? I stared at Jessica's text, what did you say to him, until the little bubble of anger in my chest faded into something closer to amusement. Then I slid my phone into the nightstand drawer and shut it. For once, they could spin whatever story they wanted without me standing there trying to correct it. I woke up the next morning to light and quiet. No clatter of pans, no "Helen, where's the?" shouted from downstairs, just the hush of the ocean and that thin strip of sunlight cutting across the hotel room carpet. My body tried to leap into the old routine anyway. My brain registered the date and immediately started reaching for mental checklists, when to put the ham in, whether the table was set, if I'd defrosted the pie crusts. Then I opened my eyes and saw the palm trees. I lay back against the pillow and laughed, a small, disbelieving sound. At breakfast, I took my time. I poured coffee, chose fruit I didn't have to wash or slice, grabbed a pastry without thinking about who liked which kind. No one was watching me, waiting for me to refill anything. A woman at the next table caught my eye as I sat down. "You on the great holiday escape too?" she asked, nodding toward the ocean. "Something like that," I said. Within minutes, I'd been adopted by their table, 3 women all around my age, all hiding from somebody, as one of them put it. A divorced teacher avoiding her ex's blended family Christmas, a grandmother who'd put in her time and was on strike, and Dana, who'd announced she'd given her grown kids a heads up and a credit card and booked a flight. Talking to them was easy. We were just women with stories, not roles. No one expected me to fix anything. Later, floating in the pool, I remembered a different Christmas, me at the sink, arms in soapy water up to my elbows, listening to everyone else laugh in the living room. Someone had called, "Helen, can you turn the heat down?" And I'd said, "Sure," even though what I'd wanted to say was, "Get up and do it yourself." Back then, I'd swallowed it. Here, under the sun, I let the memory drift off and didn't chase it. That afternoon, Janet video called. "Let me see your face," she ordered. "I want to confirm you're not secretly trapped in your pantry." I flipped the camera, see, palms, ocean, no gravy. She grinned. "You look 10 years younger. I drove past your house, by the way. I didn't stop, obviously, but your street looks like a used car lot." Guilt fluttered, she saw it instantly. "Don't even start," she warned. "If they're miserable, that's a them problem. You assigned yourself to the not losing my mind team this year. Stay on that team." "I'm trying," I said. "It feels weird not being needed." She snorted. "Oh, you're needed. You're just not available for exploitation. Big difference." After we hung up, I sat on the balcony watching the sky turn gold, a little notebook open on my lap. I couldn't remember the last time I'd written anything just because I wanted to. My phone buzzed. "Jessica. I hope you know this has ruined Christmas for everyone." I read it once, checked in with myself, waited for the familiar rush of panic. Nothing. Just a calm, solid sense that the world could survive one ruined Christmas without collapsing. I typed back. "Enjoy the chaos, I'm enjoying my peace." I hit send and actually smiled. Her reply took longer. Little dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. I could imagine her pacing in my kitchen, phone in hand, building her argument. Finally, the message landed. "The kids are asking why you don't love them enough to be here." I stared at the message until the words stopped burning. "The kids are asking why you don't love them enough to be here." For a moment, my thumb hovered over the keyboard, a dozen explanations lining up. "Of course I love them, this isn't about them, Grandma needed a break." Then it hit me, she wasn't asking a question, she was weaponizing the answer. I locked the screen and set the phone down beside my coffee cup. If Jessica wanted to teach my grandchildren that love only counted when it looked like servitude, that was on her. I wasn't co-signing it anymore. By the second full day, the resort wasn't just a break, it felt like a rehearsal for a different kind of life. I woke up when my body was ready, not when a to-do list yanked me out of bed. I walked the beach, ate when I was hungry, sat where the light was nice. No one needed me to make it special. it already was. On the balcony, notebook open, I started writing in lists. When I get home, call a realtor. Seriously consider selling the house. Find something smaller, cozier, mine. Say yes only to people who see me as Helen, not as mom who handles everything. I pictured a little condo closer to town, 2 bedrooms max, a guest room because I wanted one, not because I needed overflow space for 25 people, a kitchen sized for a normal life, not for industrial catering. The idea didn't scare me, it felt like taking off shoes that had always been half a size too small. A wave of old memories rolled in, uninvited but clear. The year I skipped my own checkup because Jessica's parents decided last minute to extend their stay. The time I canceled lunch with Janet because Tom texted, "Hey, can we come by with a few friends? Jess already told them you make the best nachos." The anniversary trip George and I never took because the kids really want Christmas to be exactly the same this year. Sacrifices stacked quietly on top of each other until they looked like normal life. I closed my eyes and let the anger come, a slow, low burn instead of the usual sharp sting. For the first time, it didn't turn inward. I didn't blame myself for being too sensitive. I just saw what had happened. And I was proud, actually proud, that I'd finally interrupted it. I'd said no. They were surviving. And I was more than surviving, I was planning. My phone rang while I was sitting on the edge of the pool, feet in the water. Jessica. I almost let it go, then I decided if I was really rebuilding, it started with talking like a different woman. I answered, "Hello." She sounded tired, less sharp around the edges. "Hey, I thought we should talk properly." "How are things there?" I asked. A pause. "Messy," she admitted. "Dinner was late, the kids are cranky, my mom's annoyed, and Tom's different." "Different how?" "He told everyone this morning that next year if we want a big Christmas we host it," she said, a bit of disbelief in her voice. "At our house, or we don't do it. He said you're retired from that job." I smiled before I could stop myself. He's right. She exhaled. "Look, Helen, I know I've leaned on you, we all have, maybe too much. I just didn't expect you to pull back this hard. I thought we could, I don't know, reset, start over." There it was, the word I'd always wanted to hear from her. Reset. But if we were resetting, it had to be on more than her terms. "I'm glad you're thinking about it," I said. "Really, but my reset doesn't mean going back to a smaller version of the same role. I'm not the family caretaker anymore, not the holiday engine. If you and Tom want a relationship with me, it has to be as a person with limits, not an endless resource." "So you're just done helping?" she asked, hurt flaring. "No," I said gently, "I'm done being expected. There's a difference. If I offer help 1 year because I want to, that's one thing. Planning your lives around me doing it, that ends now." She was quiet for a long moment. I could picture her in my kitchen, finally seeing how much space she took up in it. "I don't know how this is going to work," she said finally. "Neither do I admitted, "but I know how the old way worked for you, not for me." Another silence. Then, "I guess we'll see how things look when you get back." "I guess we will." We hung up and I sat there, feet in the water, heart pounding but steady. I picked up my notebook again and under my list added, "Stop being the default fixer. Let people feel their own consequences." My phone buzzed almost immediately. A new message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Helen, this is Olivia. I know things are weird, but when you're back, could we maybe talk, just us?" I ended up writing it twice, once on paper, once in pixels. The paper came first. I asked the front desk for extra stationery and brought it back to my room, the little Seabreeze Resort logo pressed into the top of each page like something official. I sat at the desk by the balcony door, ocean breathing in and out behind the glass, and stared at the blank sheet until the words finally came. "Tom, Jessica." My hand shook a little, but I kept going. "I'm writing this because the way we've been doing holidays, and honestly the way we've been doing us, can't continue, not for me." Once that was down, the rest uncoiled. I told them I loved them and the kids. I made sure that came first. Then I wrote the part I'd been afraid to say out loud for years. I don't want to be the default host, the built-in hotel, or the person everyone assumes will make it all work anymore. I never agreed to be the family's permanent event staff. I slipped into it. I stayed there too long. I didn't list every insult, every joke about dry turkey or cold rolls. I picked a few that mattered. The Christmas after George died when I begged for something smaller and ended up cooking for more people. The years I canceled my own plans because someone had already decided my house was available. I'm not willing to keep proving my love by ignoring my limits, I wrote. Going forward, I will not host holidays by default. If I offer, it will be because I genuinely want to, not because I'm expected to or guilted into it. Then, because this was more than about Christmas, I added, I am seriously considering selling the house. I've realized I've been keeping it more for everyone else's convenience than for my own happiness. If I do sell, there will be no going back to the way things were. I know that might hurt. It's also necessary for me. When I finished, I read it through. It wasn't cruel, it was just true. I signed it the only way that made sense. Love, Mom/Helen. I took photos of the pages with my phone, then sat there with the letter in my hand, and a new thought formed. Why should this only exist on paper? They could pretend they lost. I opened my email, typed it out almost word for word, and addressed it to Tom and Jessica. Then my eyes drifted to the big group thread she'd used to assign air mattresses and potluck dishes, her parents, aunts, cousins, Sam, Olivia. And one name saved as Megan, Jess's cousin, from some long ago RSVP. My heart hammered. This was the twist. Either I kept treating this like a private little misunderstanding, or I told the whole cast the show was over. I added the thread. Hit send. For a minute, nothing changed. The ocean kept moving. A kid shrieked down by the pool. Somewhere, a housekeeper's cart rattled past my door. Then my phone lit up. First from Tom. Mom, I read your letter. I'm sorry, I didn't see it, any of it. We need to talk when you get back, just us, please. Relief hit so fast my eyes burned. Not fixed, but a crack of understanding. Seconds later from Jessica. You had no right to send that to my family. None. You're humiliating me, making me look like some kind of monster. This is beyond hurtful, Helen. It's vindictive. I let that sit. I didn't answer. For once, her opinion wasn't the emergency. Then a new number, long and angry. This is Megan. I cannot believe you would do this to Jessica. After everything she's done to include you, you choose now to play the victim? My parents flew across the country for this. You're being selfish and dramatic. You ruined Christmas and then tried to blame everyone else. Unbelievable. Old me would have started defending myself line by line. New me just sat there, phone warm in my hand, noticing something simple and enormous. None of these people had called to ask how I was. They weren't wounded that I was hurting. They were wounded that I'd stopped being useful. My thumb hovered over reply, muscles twitching with habit. Then I scrolled up, tapped the info icon on the group thread, and found a button I'd never actually used before. Leave this conversation. I hit it. The thread disappeared, the screen went quiet. For the first time in years, so did my head, right up until a single new message popped up, separate from the chaos, just Tom. If you really sell the house, I want to help you find something that feels like yours this time. Tom's text sat at the top of my screen like a small lamp in a dark room. If you really sell the house, I want to help you find something that feels like yours this time. Not don't you dare, not you're overreacting, just I want to help. I set the phone down and realized I was smiling. The next couple of days slipped into a rhythm that felt suspiciously like an actual life. I walked the beach at sunrise, coffee in hand, letting the waves erase other people's expectations one line at a time. I ate breakfast slowly, lingered over conversations with Dana and the other women, said yes to a boat tour just because I'd never done one. No one side when I chose for myself. In the afternoons, I read until my eyes got heavy, then napped without apologizing to anyone for being lazy. At night, I sat in the courtyard and listened to the band, my foot keeping time, my mind blissfully empty of grocery lists. Peace wasn't a big revelation, it was 1,000 tiny absences, no demands, no guilt, no one needing me to fix a thing. On the fourth day, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered without thinking, "Hello." "Helen, it's Megan," the cousin, her voice was overly bright. "Do you have a minute?" I almost laughed. "A few," I said. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she rushed. "For that text, I was defending Jess, I was stressed, I didn't mean everything I said. Can we just move past it for the family?" There it was again, for the family. "I appreciate the apology for the text," I said, "but I'm not stepping back into the old role, Megan. I don't want to be in the middle of your family dynamics anymore." There was a beat of offended silence. "So you're really doing this, just bowing out?" "I'm choosing where I belong," I said, "and it's not in a system where I only matter when I'm useful." She exhaled sharply. "Wow, okay." The line went dead. I looked out at the water and felt nothing but relief. That evening Tom called. "Mom," he said, no preamble, "I meant what I texted, about the house, and I'm sorry for all of it, for acting like your life was a resource we could schedule around." The words settled somewhere deep. "Thank you," I said, "that's all I ever wanted you to see." "I want to do better," he added, "for you, not because Jess is mad, because I'm ashamed I didn't notice sooner." For a moment my throat closed. "We'll figure it out when I'm home," I managed, "on my terms this time." We hung up and I walked down to the beach, the sky bleeding pink into blue, the water lapped at my ankles, warm and steady. Back in my room, my phone buzzed once more. A new email. From Jessica Stewart. Subject: Ray, your letter, you forgot one thing. Coming home didn't feel like stepping back into my old life. It felt like walking into a house I finally had permission to rearrange. The cab pulled away and I just stood on the sidewalk for a second, staring at my little New Jersey Colonial. Same white siding, same wreath, different me. Inside, the quiet hit first. No luggage, no shoes, no chorus of "Helen, where's the..." Just my suitcase in the hall and a faint citrus smell. Janet's note waited on the entry table. "Welcome back to your house, don't forget it, Jay." I smiled, slipped off my shoes and took a slow lap through the rooms, not asking, "Will this work for 25 people, just, do I like this?" Most of the answers were no. The next morning, I started changing things. The big dining table lost its leaves, I left it set for 4 instead of 12. I boxed up half the platters and labeled them "Donate." The hall closet, once a shrine to just in case they stay over, shrunk to what I might actually need. In the living room, I dragged my favorite chair, always stuck in a corner, into the best light and put a small table beside it. The couch turned toward the window instead of the TV, like the room finally exhaled. Tom came by that weekend, hands in his pockets, eyes tracking every shift. "It feels smaller," he said. "It feels mine," I corrected. He nodded, throat working. "I'm still sorry," he said quietly, "for how long I didn't see it. I'm trying to do better." "I can tell," I said, and I could. On Tuesday, Megan showed up uninvited, coat still on, phone in hand. "Can we talk?" she said, "if we could just get everyone together and..." "No," I said, leaving the chain on the door. Her eyes widened. "I'm not doing a family summit about my boundaries. When you're ready to respect them, we can meet. Until then, this isn't the place." "So I drove here for nothing," she snapped. "You drove here to find out the rules changed," I said, and gently closed the door. Guilt lingered for a moment, then dissolved into pride. With the circus gone, my life opened up in ways I hadn't planned. Friday coffees with Janet that actually happened, a watercolor class at the community center, movie nights with friends where I brought one dish and left early if I was tired. And eventually, the Women's Center, where I started volunteering once a week, pouring coffee and listening to women tell stories that sounded achingly familiar. "I don't know who I am if I'm not taking care of everyone," one of them whispered. "I do," I said softly, "but we can figure out the rest." Weeks later, after a long day there, I came home to a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, Helen," a woman's voice said. "We're organizing a conference for women rebuilding their lives after loss, and your name keeps coming up. We were wondering if you'd be willing to share your story." I stood in my quiet, newly claimed living room, phone in my hand, and realized. For the first time in my life, they didn't want my cooking. They wanted my voice. I called the woman from the voicemail the next morning, sitting in my favorite chair with the good light on my face. "I'm not really a speaker," I warned her. She laughed. "From what I've heard, you're exactly a speaker, you just haven't stood at a podium yet." We picked a date, March, long enough to panic, short enough I couldn't back out forever. In the weeks leading up to it, my life settled into something that finally felt like mine. Mornings at my own slow pace. Afternoons at the Women's Center, doing intake forms, pouring coffee, and sitting in those squeaky plastic chairs with women who sounded so much like the old me it hurt. "I just keep saying yes," one of them whispered. "I don't even know how to stop." "You start once," I said, "one no, then another, it's like building a muscle." They listened to me like I was saying something wise, and I realized I kind of was. On Thursdays, we started a small group, 6 women, 1 pot of coffee, a stack of tissues, and a whiteboard where we wrote things like "No is a full sentence and you're allowed to disappoint people who expect too much." I wasn't their therapist, I was their proof. Tom and I kept finding our way back to each other, too. He'd call after a hard conversation with Jessica or her parents and say, "I actually told them no this time," half proud, half stunned. "That's what grown men do," I'd tease. "Welcome to the club." He started asking me things he'd never asked before, what I wanted to do for my birthday, whether I liked his new haircut, if I'd thought more about moving. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Megan's texts, when they came, went unanswered. I didn't feel cruel, I felt consistent. Some ties you loosen, some you quietly let die. At my next meeting with the financial planner, I surprised myself. "I want to earmark something," I told her, "for the Women's Center, and maybe for a little fund, women trying to leave situations where they're stuck like I was. I don't want everything I've worked for to just go back into the same old patterns." She nodded like she'd been waiting for me to say it. For the first time, my money felt like a tool, not a safety net for everyone else's chaos. 2 nights before the conference, I spread my note cards on the dining table, now set for 4, not 12, and realized what I was really about to do. I wasn't just telling a story about one rebellious Christmas. I was putting my old self to rest in front of a room full of witnesses. The thought scared me so much my hands shook. I gathered the cards, slipped them into my bag, and stood at the front window, looking out at my quiet street. Tomorrow, I'd get in my car, drive to a ballroom full of strangers, and say out loud the thing I'd only recently learned to believe. I wasn't put on this earth to make everyone else comfortable. And I had no idea who might be sitting in that audience, listening. The ballroom felt too big and my voice felt too small. "Take your time," the host whispered, pressing the mic into my hand. "They need this." I stepped up, lights in my eyes, 100 women looking back at me. "My name is Helen," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted. "And last Christmas, I booked a beach trip and left 25 relatives to fend for themselves." A murmur moved through the room, half gasp, half laugh. I told them the story. How I'd been volunteered for years, how my house had quietly become everybody's hotel, how saying no had felt like jumping off a cliff, how the ground had been there anyway. I didn't demonize anyone, but I didn't protect them either. I just told the truth about the texts, the guilt, the letter, the silence that followed, and the life that opened up once I stopped begging for permission to exist. When I stopped being useful, I finished, some people disappeared, but the ones who loved me, not my service, they stepped forward, including me. Silence, then applause that rolled over me like a wave. Women lined up after, a nurse who'd worked every Christmas in 20 years, a grandmother who whispered, "I thought I was just ungrateful," a young woman clutching my hand saying, "I'm going to send this to my mom, she's you." I was signing a program when I heard, soft behind me, "Helen." I turned. "Olivia." Hair pulled back, conference badge around her neck, eyes glossy. "I didn't think you'd recognize me," she said, nervous smile. "I saw your name on the program, I drove up." My heart lurched. "You heard all that?" "I heard it at Christmas," she said quietly, When you sent the letter, everyone was furious, but it stuck with me. I left early that trip, went home, signed up for this conference." She swallowed. "I realized how much we all expected you to disappear into the kitchen and be grateful." She took a breath. "I just wanted you to know you weren't the only one who walked out of that house. You started something." The twist wasn't that my story shocked them. It was that somewhere back in that crowded, noisy Christmas, another woman had been watching. And my freedom had given her permission to start looking for her own. The moving truck outside the little brick condo felt like a sign with wheels. I stood on my front porch with a mug of tea, sweater sleeves pushed up, watching strangers carry boxes through the door I'd been quietly eyeing for months. Flower boxes under the windows, a small balcony, no room for 25 air mattresses even if someone tried. Behind me, my own house loomed, 3 bedrooms, too many closets, a dining room that still felt like a stage set, even with the table shrunk down. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Megan." I didn't look. I'd stopped needing to. Instead, I thought about the last year, about the women who'd written to me, the support group at the center, the conferences and panels where I'd stood up and said, "You're allowed to belong to yourself." Somewhere along the way, that permission had finally sunk all the way into me, too. Janet's car pulled into my driveway. She got out, squinting in the autumn sun. "You're doing that porch-staring thing again," she said, coming up the steps. "Are we rehearsing lines or making decisions?" I gestured with my mug toward the condo down the street. "They sold it." "I noticed," she said. "You've been looking at it like it was a dessert cart." "I keep imagining myself there," I admitted. "Smaller space, less history, fewer ghosts. And fewer places for uninvited relatives to sleep," she added. I huffed out a laugh. "There is that." We stood in silence for a moment, watching the movers haul in a mattress, a lamp, a box labeled kitchen. "You know," she said eventually, "it's okay if the life you want now doesn't fit in the life you built for other people." I looked back at my house, at the window where I'd once stood crying over gravy, at the front door where Megan had demanded a summit, at the dining room that had seen more performance than joy. Tom's voice echoed in my mind. "If you really sell the house, I want to help you find something that feels like yours this time." I set my mug down on the railing. "I've spent a lot of time teaching other women how to walk away from rooms that hurt them," I said. "Maybe it's time I walk out of one more." Janet's eyes lit up. "Is that you being philosophical, or is that you being ready?" I pulled my phone from my pocket, not to check Megan's messages, but to scroll to a different name entirely. "My realtor." "I think," I said, thumb hovering over the call button, "I'm ready to find out who I am in a home that was never built around them." It all. The first night I slept in the condo, I woke up in the dark and didn't know where I was. No creaks from the old staircase, no glow from the street lamp outside my old bedroom window, just quiet and the soft hum of the fridge in a kitchen that wasn't built for crowds. Then I remembered I'd chosen this. I rolled over, saw the faint outline of my favorite chair by the balcony door, and smiled. Life in the smaller place unfolded like a deep breath. Mornings were slow coffee on the balcony, watching neighbors walk their dogs. I walked to the library, to the farmer's market, to meet Janet for brunch. Nothing in my life required a seating chart anymore. At the Women's Center, I started mentoring younger women more formally. We'd sit in a corner room, knees angled toward each other, and I'd listen as they tangled through their stories. "I feel guilty when I say no," one of them confessed. "Of course you do," I said. "You were trained that way, but guilt isn't a stop sign, it's just a leftover feeling from the old rules." They wrote that down like it was wisdom. Really, it was just scar tissue I'd learned how to use. Tom came over one Saturday with a plant in a ceramic pot. "Housewarming," he said, setting it on my tiny table. He looked around, taking in the single bookshelf, the small couch, the lack of just-in-case beds. "This feels peaceful." "It is," I said, "and I intend to keep it that way." He sat, elbows on his knees. "I want you to know," he said slowly, "I'm raising the kids different because of you. They'll know their mom and grandma are people, not machines." Something in me unnodded at that. That's all I ever wanted, I said, for it to mean something. Megan still tried, holiday texts, old photos, long messages about starting over. I read them without sting, then set my phone down and went back to my life. No anger, just peace. Some doors stay closed for a reason. The years didn't blur, they widened. I spoke at more events, traveled when I felt like it, painted badly, laughed loudly, filled my home with things that had nothing to do with anyone's expectations: shells from beaches, programs from talks, notes from women who'd heard my story and left their own kitchens behind. One afternoon, standing in my little living room before another trip, I caught my reflection in the window, older, lined, steady. They'd once counted on my silence. Now my voice had a life of its own. I thought about all the versions of me I'd survived, all the times they'd mistaken my compliance for weakness, all the women now walking an easier path because I'd finally stepped off the old one. I didn't whisper it, I said it out loud in my own home to myself. They tried to break me, I built something better instead.